Hi everyone, it's Errol Wallace, and this is a very unusual video for me to make. I'll be honest with you, throughout the course of this semester, I've had an opportunity to sort of look back at the research process, and my original concept was to talk about corporate change communication and how that can really affect the individual, the producer, their efficiency, and how it can instill confidence in workers. Well, I'll give you a brief overview. Behind me is Stanley Furniture. It once employed well over 1,000 workers, and because of the situation that developed with NAFTA a while back, we saw massive layoffs and decrease in employment in my community. And the way that that was communicated, both to the workers and to the community as a whole, was poor, to say the least. Toltex, which employed over 1,000 and worked in the manufacture of sweatshirts like the one I'm wearing, basically came in one day and said, don't come back. We're sorry, but NAFTA has passed. We're shipping everything to Mexico and China, and we wish you the best, and thank you for everything you've done. And that was very disheartening, and it really hurt the workers and it hurt the community. One, because it built up a lack of trust, honesty, and transparency. And when we look at really the literature review that I performed, almost every single peer-reviewed journal article talks about the importance of honesty, transparency, empathy, and compassion. Not only for layoffs, but for any form of corporate change. It can make a tremendous difference. The literature review really brought out that need for compassion. And I know that as we talk about the influence of these loss of jobs and how it folds into our Christian worldview, you know, I just hearken back to the do unto others as you would have do unto you, to love thy neighbor as you love yourself. And that has definitely not been the case in corporate communication for the most part, especially in this community. This facility that you see here, thousands and thousands of square feet that are just going to rot. And the community is coming to terms with that, and they remain in crisis. We have one of the largest overdose per capita ratios anywhere in the country here in far southern Virginia. So what did I do for my research? Well, I went out and I basically went to community centers like the Moose Lodge and the Elks Club and some farmers markets, and I found individuals who had gone through this, and I did a quantitative and a qualitative review. Now, some folks are not in possession of the greatest literacy skills. They have difficulty reading. So a lot of the quantitative Likert scale, I had to read aloud and then give them a chance to go back and look at their answers. But it was really in the qualitative interviews that my heart really began to break. They talked about the suddenness of the announcements, about the lack of preparedness they were given, about how it affected not only them, but their entire family. And it also highlighted a very interesting trend, which I had not expected, but after going through the coding section, I was really able to narrow down and focus on this. And it was the long-lasting lack of trust in the corporate world, period. Now, a lot of these folks were in their 20s and 30s when these layoffs occurred in the late 90s and early noughts. And throughout the rest of their working career, they've talked about how they have a distrust of their employer. That was not the case before. The thought before had been, look, we can work here and work for 40 years and retire and have a good pension and stay in our hometown and raise our families. That is not the case anymore. These workers have suffered extreme bouts of depression. They've gone through difficulties financially and emotionally with their families, and that has built up an enduring lack of trust. And so I think really when we look at the research question of how could we effectively communicate corporate change while maintaining trust and continuing with efficiency growth, we really have to look hard at what we're saying and how we're saying it, and to whom we are saying it. And again, this kind of goes back to our Christian ethos, that we really have to be compassionate to our brothers and sisters and understand what they're going through. There were so many articles throughout the course of this study that have really revealed to me that it's not only the massive change, but it can be the micro change as well that can throw someone into complete disarray. I think that we've matured as a society and we're able to recognize that better. I will tell you from a personal position, I'm changing roles right now within my company, and there's anxiety and there's fear and there's apprehension, but there's also excitement because the company came to me and made a thorough presentation of the who, what, where, when, and how that these changes were going to be implemented, and my role within that, and the role of my peers. And that has made a huge difference for me. And I think what we really need to strive to continue pushing that forward. And so my hope is that my actual study, which will take place over the course of 8 to 12 months, we'll look at different industries, not just manufacturing, but we'll also look at people who work in sales. We'll look at people who work in support roles. And what we'll be looking for is ways that we can communicate corporate change, both on the macro and the micro level, so that they can engage in that change, be part of it, or at least if it affects their employment level, they can understand that there is compassion and empathy being put forward to them so that they can move forward with their career without building distrust of capitalism, of manufacturing, of employment with large companies as a whole.